Barend, this morning you sent me a text message that said, well, we're always talking about technology on the podcast, but I think it's time to talk about the role of the human in our next episode. And I
Yeah.
actually fully agree with you. I had a pretty bad night this night. I am jet lagged, so I only slept for a few hours. So I think in this episode, you're going to wake me up. And my question is, what do you have to share about the role of the recruiter in this evolving technical landscape where we're currently living in?
Yeah. Yeah. This topic actually didn't magically popped up in my head. I had a discussion yesterday with a recruiter, like not someone like us talking about recruitment, but someone actually doing the job. And he asked me this question. He says, I follow the podcast and I hear all these stories about how my work is going to change. So what is my role going to be? And I thought it was an interesting question. Because apparently there was this idea that our goal would be to replace humans or to automate everything, like we were building the matrix for recruitment. And I think, yeah, we talk about this a lot also, not in the podcast, but also in the office. And I think the opposite is true. So I thought, yeah, let's elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, well, let's do it. So we're
So what do
not
you
building the
think?
matrix for
I mean,
recruitment.
you're jet lagged. You want to wake up, and the best thing is to. So what is the role of the human in the future of recruitment?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the organization and the role of the recruiter in the process. Because we can look at in-house recruiters handling inbounds, or we can look at uh, technical recruiters who need to source on the internet all day. But I think in general we can say that we believe in the synergy of both. And per role, you need to define as a company what is the handover moment between technology and the human. But it will never, well, never is, don't say never, but I think the human will always play a huge role in that. But we need to define where are humans good at and where is the technology good at.
Yeah, I agree. So I think the human will focus indeed on the tasks that can only be done by human or are really done better if a human does it. And I think there is also this ethical perspective. For example, making the final decision. I mean, in the end, recruitment is also making decisions that can impact the life of people and hopefully for the positive. I mean, that's why a lot of people choose this profession. So I think what you just mentioned, like where is the human really better, but also where maybe from an ethical perspective, do we want humans just to make the final call?
Yeah. Well, can you give an example where you see the human mission critical next to the decision making process, but more in the process?
I think it's twofold. It's one, when it's about true human connections. So when you talk to applicants, when you have to show empathy, when you really want to get to know someone, when you want to, for example, you mentioned in-house recruitment teams. If you want to make sure that someone fits in the company culture, I think that's definitely a human responsibility. But I think there will be a complete new responsibility. We call this orchestrating, where you're not like a manager managing a team, but you're orchestrating a lot of AI recruiters that are executing tasks. So on one hand, you're responsible, I think, for the final decision. You're responsible for the true connection with the applicants, and you're responsible for the oversight, for making sure that everything functions well. Because in the end, if a recruitment process is not functioning, it will impact the organization. So someone needs to own that, and that will never
Yeah.
be AI.
No, agree. And I also think that as soon as we can delegate more tasks to AI, like if you talk to recruiters, the one thing they say first is, I don't have enough time to do my work really well. If you look at all the things that they need to do, especially when you're in a 360 role, where you're
Yeah,
responsible for sourcing, placements, and also finding clients in the agency world, for example, but also managing the stakeholders, the hiring managers. Um, I also think that how much time do you have as a recruiter to be a really good business partner for a hiring manager if you're
yeah,
flooded with all that work? And if you think about that, it's pretty crazy because hiring success is really dependent on that role. How well are you able to understand what the organization needs? And that does take a lot of time. It's just not like, hey, let's have a 45-minute conversation, we write a job description, and we're done. I think the difference is made when you can spend really time on connecting with the person who's hiring.
Yeah. No, I agree. Because in today's reality, often it's this what you just described, right? It's a 45 minutes call and a 45-minute intake call, just one conversation.
Yeah.
And whatever the hiring manager says is the truth. And I think there is an opportunity now for recruiters to dive deeper, to ask the questions behind the question, basically, and figure out what is needed
Yeah.
to make the team successful. So
Yeah.
there is a huge opportunity there, which is definitely a human responsibility.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we can agree that depending on the role and the organization, that the human will be mission critical, but the human will do work that's closer to where humans are good at. But I think, let's mention the elephant in the room. I think a lot of recruiters that we also speak to are a little bit afraid for this change and show resistance towards AI because they think it's going to come for their job, or they believe technology is never able to do what I'm doing. And I think that is also something. Well, I think that's the wrong mindset, I would say.
Yeah, I think these are two responses, right? Like
Almost
try
feels
to
like an instant resistance without even
exactly
knowing. Yeah,
preserve what is. Like,
yeah,
no, it's not possible. AI can never do
yeah,
this. And well, the reality is AI will never be able to do the things that you are really good at. So
yeah,
focus on those things. And that
yeah,
was also so. This recruiter that I spoke to, Peter, he also literally asked that question. He says, "How can I prepare for the new reality?" So, okay, if this is all going to change, what is going to
yeah,
be my role, and how
yeah,
can I prepare? And I
yeah.
think that's a valid question.
Yeah. And what did you answer?
I think it's two things. One, understand the new reality. So just play around with AI tools so you can understand what the capabilities are of this new colleague. And the other thing is get better at the things where you know you will have to focus on in a few years. So I think I didn't talk about the example you just gave, but um, rethink the way you discuss new roles with hiring managers. I think that's a very nice challenge. Okay, you always do this 45-minute call. You have this form that you fill in. Well, don't worry, we can fill in that form from now. But what can you add to the table? What can you bring to the table to really become a strategic partner for this hiring manager instead of a sourcing machine?
Yep.
And I think so on one hand, understanding what AI can do, but also on the other side, challenge what you have been doing for years on the things where you can make a difference in the future.
Yeah. And I think what will happen is that, do you think the role of the recruiter, the role of the human, will be different in a few years? The job description of a recruiter.
I 100%. I think it will be way more human. So that basically the capability to show real empathy and have in-depth conversations with applicants. And on the other hand, the capability of being a strategic partner for the customer of the hiring manager, that will be very, very critical. And then I think the skill to have oversight, on the processes, that run under the hood. And I think skills that will completely disappear are around, admin tasks, consensus in filling in forms, those things. It's not relevant anymore.
Yeah. I think it makes the job much more fun, but I also think it makes the job more accessible to many. It makes the job more accessible to many more people because it's not I would say, repetitive. In many recruitment realities, you're just a sourcing machine. You're looking up people on the internet. You send out messages. You might not even overthink those messages anymore. So I think it's also really hard to find great recruiters because such a substantial part of the job is just not fun.
Yeah. I think it will be more fun for the right people, but I also think that your partners and the clients will raise the bar because
Hmm.
over time they will understand that a lot of the things that they are grateful for right now, I mean, the fact that you found those amazing candidates on LinkedIn, yeah, that's just a commodity a few years from now. So it's not about that anymore. It's about
No.
those other things. So I think it will make it more interesting, but it will also raise the bar.
Okay. Well, Barend, you woke me up with this discussion. So it was good to chat about the role of the human in this AI wave, and I think we both agree that the role of the human might even be more important, but in synergy with technology.
Absolutely. So now you can have your coffee.
Let's do it.